start the recording, and I am going to,
Music coming.
This is Lena Webb, and I have been a member of NDTDW from the very beginning in 2002, and I've been a past president in I think almost every other position. Carol Jablonski is our current president. But I want to let you know that first of all, due to the time constraints, we will be unable to do questions through chat, but we will be posting all of the candidates' information on all of the candidate, so you can contact all the candidates when, or to ask their questions when you want to ask whatever you want to ask them. I wanted to let you know who our moderators are. Our moderators are Bob Franklin. He is the president of the Far North Dallas Richardson Democrats. He's a professor of American government, and he's done seminars, and he is our guru when it comes to knowing how things work in government. Then we have Sharon Hirsch, and she's okay. Everybody else, if you will mute yourself, please. Then we have Sharon Hirsch. She is new to the NDTDW in that she's just moved into Dallas, although we've certainly known her in the past, is that she's been involved in other things with us. She ran for State House District 66 twice, came close, but no cigar, unfortunately. But she, as I say, she's the newest member of our board, so we thought she would be good, since she has been part of these forums before, we would give her the spotlight tonight to actually start and being one of our moderators. Now, I've got a couple things to tell you all before we start. Two of our Dallas City Council member incumbents will not be participating tonight. We offered two separate dates to them for the event. One candidate had conflicts on both nights. The other candidate never responded to our repeated requests. To provide our followers with an opportunity to hear from these two candidates, we offered them the ability to produce a written opening statement and written responses to questions that we would have asked them if they had been participating. Since this would have been since this would give the written responder a slight advantage in having time to prepare responses to specific questions, we had decided that in fairness to the other candidates, we would require that those written responses would be provided to the opposing candidates, but just 1 hour before the event, so that they could prepare a 1 minute rebuttal if they wanted to. With that proviso, Carol Mendelson declined to provide responses, and she did that just this afternoon. And Mr. Magoo never did respond to us in any way. That said, Candy Evans, who is running in District 11, has had a family emergency. As a result, we're moving the questions for District 11 to the end of the forum in hopes that she'll be able to join us when we start. If she's even later than that, we'll hope our moderator, who will be Franklin at that time, will be able to move things around and get her in to be able to answer some questions. So in the meantime, we're going to start our forum with District 12, and we have only the opponent as opposed to the incumbent. So Sharon Hirsch, you want to, how can I get you? What? Okay, there you go. Okay, you're up. You're up.
Right. Thank you, Lena. And thanks to everybody for being here, and to the candidates for participating. I'm just going to say it's a lot different vibe being on the asking side of the questions rather than the answering side of the questions. So a little more relaxing. So anyway, we're going to start with District 12. And Ms. Curl, you have 2 minutes for your opening statement. So go ahead.
You need to, Elva, you need to unmute yourself.
Got it. I always do that. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to see all your faces. I'm running because I feel like I want to focus on good governance. I want to move past the gridlock and the divisiveness that is paralyzing our progress in the city. I know how important it is to listen to constituents and to hear their concerns and be responsive to them. I know that it's important to have a good working relationship with other members of the council so that District 12 isn't left out. I served in the US Senate. I focused on constituent services and public outreach. And I worked in the city of Dallas. I worked in public works and transportation. And there I worked in stormwater management, where I educated people on protecting our waterways. I worked in the city manager's office, where I had a good overview of the city and how every department was able to work together. And I also worked in the Department of Aviation. And Love Field actually is like a tiny city. You had to work. It has many moving parts, and you have to work with a lot of departments in the city. You have to work with the federal government, with the airlines, and with the concessionaires. So I have a good track record of forming good working relationships with people and forming coalitions to get results. And so because of that, I feel that there's no on-the-job training for me. I can get to work starting on day one.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so for our first question, what do you think are the 3 most pressing issues for city administration? And you have 2 minutes for your answer.
Okay, the 3 most pressing issues at the city of Dallas, I feel like, is how we spend our budget dollars in public safety. I think that we are using ineffective 20th century solutions to solve 21st century problems. I think we need to move back from just, I had a constituent the other day say, if you send a hammer, if you only have a hammer, you're gonna think everything is a nail. Or not my constituent, but a resident. And I think that that is a very good point. I think a second thing is that the city needs to do more to help small businesses overcome the challenges of COVID-19. There are a lot of great programs all around the country that are being implemented, and I would like to see that here in the city of Dallas. Lastly, I feel that the city needs to be more proactive when it comes to responding to emergencies and not just reactive. We saw how it was after the snowstorm. We saw how, there's still blue tarps in some homes in Dallas after the tornado in 2019. And so I feel like the city knows that there are more severe storms that are happening, and we need to have a plan in order to respond to them, in order to protect the people and the property in the city of Dallas.
Hey, your time's up.
Thank you. You touched on this a little bit in your first answer, but this question is specific. What is your plan for aiding small business due to the pandemic and after? And you have 2 minutes.
Yes. Well, the first thing we have to do as the city is we have to use the federal dollars that come in through the door. Last year, the city received money from the CARES Act in April. And in October, during a city council meeting, they said, we haven't spent 60% of this, these funds. And so they were scrambling, well, let's give it to this nonprofit and that nonprofit and redo these programs to get more people that qualify. And I think that that's the first step. If someone is giving you money, you need to spend it. You need to spend it to help people. I know that there's also, another thing you can do is you can waive certain fees for businesses. You can work with the state. I know that there were some bars that were closed down for months and months and months. And those liquor licenses and the training and everything that they have to pay for, if there's no money coming in, they're not going to be able to pay for that. And so we could work with these businesses. Some bars in the city have been there for decades. And so we need to, I see some people nodding. Yes, we need it. They're part of our community. They're a part of the fabric of our community. So we have to make sure to protect them. And there's a lot more. I've seen some cities implement apps to help you locate a business that uses, that still requires face masks. And so there's a lot of things that the city can do. We just have to look at what other cities are doing and maybe just implement some of their ideas.
Great, thank you. Okay, next question. What one issue do you consider most critical for District 12? And again, you have 2 minutes for your answer.
I think in District 12, the biggest issue I feel like is we don't have a lot of green space. We have a lot of strip shopping center parking lots that I've never seen full of cars. I don't know if you guys, we've driven by Campbell and Preston, that Kroger shopping lot. I've never seen it full. And I think that former City Council member Sandy Grayson worked with a developer over for Hillcrest Village, and they were able to convert part of a parking lot into a public park. And I think that that is a great idea. I think that we have this great template. We have a lot of locations with just nothing but asphalt, and we need to implement this idea. I know that there are a lot of projects that are in the works for District 12 that were in the 2017 bond program, a lot of park projects. And I'm glad that we're finally going to have some dirt moving on those projects 4 years after the bond was approved. But we need some new ideas. We need to be forward-looking when it comes to green space.
Great, thanks. Okay, now we're going to ask you to kind of size up your opponent. What are the strengths and the weaknesses, or what do you consider the strengths and the weaknesses of your opponent?
This is a toughie, you know, and the thing is, it doesn't really matter what I think. You know, I'm just one vote in the district. What matters is what the residents and the voters of District 12 think. I've been out knocking on a lot of doors these past few weeks. You know how it is. And I'm hearing the same thing everywhere I go. A lot of people don't know who our council member is. They talk about Jennifer Staubach Gates, and they talk about Lee Kleinman, and they're not, you know, that's the wrong district. A lot of people have told me that
Linda, can you please mute yourself? Linda, mute.
Yes.
a lot of people have told me stories about how they've tried contacting her office and they don't receive a response or a call back or even an email back. And I have experience with this because I asked for a pedestrian crossing sign on the crosswalk next to Brentfield Elementary School where my daughter goes to school, and I never received a response, just an initial and to set up a meeting, and then nothing came of that. You know, and some people just, they don't want to get involved. They don't want to feel the backlash. They're worried about what other people will think about them, and they worry about, you know, if they will never get help from the city again if they put up a sign in their yard. And I think that that's sad. And I don't think that, you know, a city council election, I mean, I do think it's serious, but I don't think it should be where you feel a lot of social pressure to do a certain thing when it's just a vote, and by next year, no one's gonna, you know, remember this. And so I just think that you should just vote with your conscience. And so I just don't like that. I think that people should be free to vote for whomever they choose, and there should be no pressure one way or the other. And so those are just what I've been hearing from from voters in District 12. And I guess that's all I can say about it.
Okay, thank you. This is the last question. And you touched on this a little bit, I think, earlier too. What can be done at the local level to ensure electric reliability and avoid or help avoid the disaster that we recently went through?
Unfortunately, the city of Dallas really doesn't have the power to do much to ensure electrical reliability. I feel that that's really up to the state. I do feel that the city can join other municipalities like Houston, San Antonio, Austin, to shine a spotlight on these issues and to hopefully get something done at the state level, you know, either by using our lobbying dollars to lobby our elected officials, like the state reps and senators, to pass some bills to beef up our reliability, electrical reliability. I do know that Encore did have a presentation to the City Council a couple of weeks ago, and you know, they had a great presentation, but the council didn't really ask anything of Encore. It was just, well, thanks for the information. Can you reduce bills and et cetera? But I feel that the city should expect more from Encore. The city should ask Encore to give them regular updates, because we're going to have these pressures on the system in the summer when it gets super hot. You know, we're going to have these pressures on the system when there's more severe storms. And I feel like we can ask Encore, tell us which buildings will continue to have electricity so that we can use those to put our, sorry, my cat likes to open doors, so we can move our vulnerable residents to these buildings. So we'll at least have some sort of protection for them. You know, and we should be prepared for these disasters. We should have a playbook that we use for all disasters. We should conduct tabletop exercises across the departments so that we can prepare and be more robust. We should communicate these efforts to the residents of Dallas so that everyone, you know, it's kind of like a fire drill. Everyone knows what to do when there's an emergency, and we need to have that around the city.
All right, Sharon, I'm going to jump in again for just a moment because we've had a, Sharon, Bob, mute yourself. We've had a number of people join since the beginning, and I want to read this statement again, just so everybody knows we're on the same page. You might notice that Elva was the only one from District 12 that was getting questions. Two of our Dallas City Council incumbents will not be participating tonight. We offered two separate dates for them for the event. One candidate had conflicts on both nights. The other candidate never responded to our repeated requests. To provide our followers with an opportunity to hear from these candidates, we offered them the ability to produce written opening statements and written responses to the questions that we would have asked them if they had participated. We had decided that in fairness to the other candidates, that those written responses would be provided to the opposing candidate 1 hour, just 1 hour before the event, so they could prepare a 1-minute rebuttal if they so desired. With that proviso, Karen Mendelson declined to provide responses, and Mr. Magoo did not respond at all. So we are proceeding with those other candidates. And as I said earlier, we had a family emergency in District 11 for Candy Evans. She's hoping to join us later, so we have moved District 11 to the end of the forum, and we're going to proceed with District 10 now, which is once again Sharon Hirsch.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Curl, for participating and helping to inform the voters. So we're going to go on to District 10. Mr. Baldeo, is he here? I don't see him.
That's what I'm looking to see.
I don't see him in the participant list.
I don't see him either. So we may just have a very, well, I suggest to people that when I put up the information about how to contact these candidates, that you all take a few moments and let them know that you tuned in, and he had confirmed that he would join us, and he was given the link, but he has not joined us. So I guess at this point we can move on to Bob Franklin and District 11, and hope that Candy Evans is able to jump in at some point in time. And with this happening, we probably will be able to take questions via chat. Carol Jablonski, if you could keep an eye on the chat room so that at the end, perhaps we can you can, ask some of those questions if they're not redundant. So Bob Franklin, you're up. You need to unmute yourself. Unmute yourself, Bob.
Okay, I'm just going to preface this in the event that Mr. Baldeo comes on, he might have been informed that his segment wasn't going to start until about 8:10. And so that might be why he's not here. If he does come back, or if he does arrive, we will go to him as soon as we finish District 11. So we have, let's see, Candy Evans is not on yet. We have Janie Schultz.
He's here.
Is that correct? Janie is there. And Hosanna, let me see if I wrote this down right. Yemaru, is that correct? Okay. And is Barry Warnick here yet?
I don't see him.
Okay. And okay, but he would have been notified that 7:20 was the start time, right?
Yeah, so we'll work with him possibly.
We'll go with what we've got at the moment. So the first question I've got will be for Ms. Schultz. And that is your plan to lower property taxes is to build the tax base. Would this be through development of more single family homes, multifamily apartments, commercial building, or retail business, especially in light of the overbuilding in commercial and retail and the high vacancy rate citywide? How do you plan to lower those property taxes?
Excuse me, but Bob, we're supposed to allow them their opening statement first.
Okay, you're right. So you had a preface to your question, but Janie Schultz, let's go with your opening statement.
Thank you. And if you would like, I'm happy to go right into that answer if you prefer, or we can have Hosanna give her opening. Which would you prefer, sir?
We'll give Hosanna her opening.
Okay,
after
great.
yours.
Okay, thank you. So thank you very much for holding this forum. I applaud the work that you do and appreciate all of you who've stayed with us through this. And I was going to say till 8 o'clock, but it's a little bit earlier. I'm running for the District 11 seat because my district, my home for 56 years, deserves someone who's ready to lead at this crucial juncture of our city's history. As we emerge from the pandemic and recover from the devastating freeze and tornado only 18 months ago, we need someone who is experienced as a leader, who can bring the city council together, who can navigate City Hall, who is of the highest character, and who will devote full time to this position. For the past 6.5 years, I've represented our district on the City Planning Commission, working on hundreds of zoning cases, and never once had a neighborhood dispute my management of District 11 applications. Why? Because I've spent over 30 years working with groups and honing my skills in collaboration, teamwork, and listening. That is why the Dallas Firefighters Association, Black American Futures, and the Apartment Association of Greater Dallas have endorsed me, along with every past council person of District 11 and 2 sitting council members. They know I get things done. I've been to over 1,400 homes in the district listening and taking care of issues now because I have excellent relationships with so many people working at City Hall. I will fight for more police officers on the street, for more dedicated detective units, particularly for street racing, and will support Chief Garcia in his quest to improve the police force, along with Chief Artis as he works for much needed upgrades to our fire stations. You can rest assured of strong and honest leadership if you vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Janie Schultz. And now opening statement from Hosanna Yemaru. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me? My
Yes.
mic is a little off today. But yes, thank you so much for having us and for organizing this. My name is Hosanna Yemaru. I'm a Dallasite, I'm a District 11 neighbor, and I'm a Democratic organizer in the area. So my work really centers around engaging communities, building coalitions, engaging people in policy decisions and how it's going to affect their neighborhoods. But you know, like many Dallasites, I wasn't born here. I'm originally from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. My family and I moved here when I was about 11 years old, and I grew up really relying on our city services. So anything from our DART buses for transportation, our libraries for access to Wi-Fi, our city services that helped us pay our utility bills when we really needed it. So I think it's really important to preserve these services, to fully fund them, to make them accessible and available and efficient for Dallasites across our city. And I also think it's really important to have counter goals mobilized to meet the urgent needs of our time, of our district and of our city, whether that be our infrastructure needs, our housing and homelessness needs, and especially our COVID-19 response as we continue to weather through this crisis. So I'm really excited to be here and to take your questions. I'm looking forward to having a good event. So thank you so much for having me.
All right, thank you, Ms. Yamaru. Do we know if Barry Wernick is in the house?
Let me look again, but I don't think so.
All right, well then we're going to go back to Ms. Schultz. A repeat of the question that we gave you. You hit upon this in your opening statement about lowering property taxes. You also said that you've been endorsed by the Apartment Association, I think you said. Okay, so the question basically is, you stated a plan to lower property taxes, and that is to build the tax base. Again, would this be through development of more single-family homes, multifamily homes, commercial building, or retail, especially in light of the fact that we have probably overbuilt commercial and retail, especially in the north, as one of the other candidates pointed out, many of these shopping centers and parking lots seem to be empty. So if you could comment on the how you intend to build a tax base.
Sure. Well, the answer is yes to all of those things. And the way that we're going to do that is through, in District 11, there is no more open space with the exception of Valley View and a few, and as was mentioned earlier, some shopping centers, which means that we're going to have to do infill development, which means that we're going to have to work really, really closely with all the neighborhoods to get what it is that we want as a district. And while we do that, we're going to be able to grow that tax base. I am not saying that it's going to lower property taxes. What I am saying is that it will help prevent raising the taxes, because we have to grow this base. Actually, interestingly enough, in our apartment rate right now, the retail vacancy rate is about 8.5%, and this is of course pre-COVID, so we're going to have to wait and see how that plays out. But it's not as bad as we think it is. Was that my time? I'm trying to get a sense of the time.
Yep, that's your time.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, in light of the fact that we have 2 candidates missing, we can give you another 30 seconds or so if you want to touch on something else related to the tax base.
The only thing that I would add to that is I think that we need to work really, really closely on our with economic development. And the key to that, frankly, the quickest fix for all of that is repairing our permitting department, which is an absolute disaster. We must work on reimagining that entire thing. It's slowing up hundreds of millions of dollars of development that should be coming into the city that would be feeding our tax base.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go to a question for Ms. Yamaru. You suggested improving public safety by redirecting non-police work to other departments. What non-police work are you referring to, and how would that operate?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. So I think that public safety is one of the things that is top of mind for a lot of people in our city. And I think that it's really important that we're making a robust investment into public safety in our city. And that means understanding that we have a lot of systemic problems, and that our police force cannot be the solution to all of our systemic problems, right? So whenever we talk about stuff like right care, expanding mental health resources, that is something that we should be taking off of the plate of our police officers and putting into departments that are more able and equipped to handle those types of calls. This also means that whenever we have things like homeless encampments, it's really important that we are figuring out ways to use our Office of Homelessness Solutions instead of police departments to handle homeless encampments, right? Responding to minor traffic violations. Instead of using just our police response, we should be using a traffic response team. We need creative, bold solutions to make sure that our police officers in our neighborhoods are protected and not overburdened, while also making sure that the citizens of this city, our residents of Dallas, have what they need, that every 911 call is answered efficiently and properly, and that people are given the care and attention that they deserve to have as Dallasites. So that's what that means.
Okay, back to Ms. Schultz. Lenny, you'll let me know when one or the other of our two missing candidates arrives.
I will.
So back to Ms. Schultz. What is your plan to combat both crime citywide and in district?
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, I think the first thing that we need to do is really work closely with Chief Garcia and understand what his plan is to reduce crime. I know that there's particular concerns in District 11 that need to be addressed, such as street racing, and that's something that I do believe I would encourage Chief Garcia to have a particular detective unit specifically working on that. The other thing that can happen with street racing is my understanding is that the city of Los Angeles has done a brilliant job with this. And so we have a lot that we can learn potentially by sending some officers and learning how they did it in Los Angeles. The other thing with crime in District 11, 80% of our crime are crimes against property of opportunity, which means we have to go back to the old campaigns of, of education campaigns about not leaving anything in your car, lock your car. As simple as it is, that actually historically reduced property crime by 23% when we did an active ongoing campaign against that kind of crime. So that's my plan. Those are my areas that I would work on in addition to whatever it is that Chief Garcia is bringing forward to the council.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Yamaru, on your website, you indicate you want to expand environmental sustainability through improved public transportation and other green infrastructure. Give us some specific goals and ideas that you would like to see accomplished.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we do, for instance, with the climate disaster that was this winter storm is that climate policy needs to be a part of what we do, not only on the federal level and the state level, but also here on the city level. And that means that we need to bolster public transportation. We need to find ways to make biking more accessible. We need to make walkability more accessible to people. We have a city that is, quote unquote, a world-class city with 90% sidewalk efficiency. We need to ensure that people are able to live where they work so that we can cut down on driving times. We need to make our buses more fare accessible and also actual disability accessible as well. I think it's important that we're focusing on things like bus rail transit and making sure that we have dedicated bus routes with dedicated bike lanes, and that we're creating cities that encourage people to have kind of 15-minute cities, right, where you can work, live, and play in the area that you are considering your home. So that's the kind of investment that I would like to see. I think on the good side as well, the Biden administration has signaled that green infrastructure is going to be a priority for them. That means we're going to see money, federal money, coming through to our city to help us actually use this as an opportunity to build our streets better, to build our sidewalks better. So I'm very excited to see where we can go with that in the future.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Schultz, I think you hit upon this as well. Dallas voters approved more than $2 billion in bonds for road and infrastructure over the last several years. What is the status of these projects? What can be done to see that they get taken care of?
Well, thank you very much for the question. I mean, first of all, one thing that I must applaud the city for is if you go to the Public Works website, they have an incredible tracking system of where they are with the bond projects. Our job now is to make sure that those continue to move forward. I don't know what the barriers are and how far behind we are. Honestly, I don't know. I can tell you that there is a very clear distinction between the projects that are bond projects versus the ongoing maintenance issues. And a lot of the bond projects that have to do with, research, complete reconstruction of streets and things like that, they have the different priorities for. I think I missed the last part of your question. I apologize.
And that would have been the status of the projects and what you think you could do to speed them up.
Well, again, these are not things that I can do. This is why I really firmly believe in the city manager form of government. We have professionals who are experts in their field, and their job is to do those things. If we're having holdups and problems in a system that we've adopted, then what we need to do is figure out what the holdups are rather than counsel people moving projects forward. So I would say then, to answer your question, my job then would be, if there are holdups, to go and try to figure out what is the problem in the system that is keeping us from fulfilling our promise to the voters. So it's really going to be more about that rather than moving a particular bond package forward. There is one, though, that I would address, and that is the bond that was passed to raise the money for the Park for Valley View Galleria project. And that's a $6 million match. We have a committee that's working very hard to raise those funds, and it is on us. That's what's holding up the spending, is us, in terms of raising the $6 million that we need for that park.
Okay, let me just interject. If we have enough time, Bob, and it's up to you, one of the comments that I got in chat was, could both the candidates answer the same questions so we could get their views on the same thing? But it's up to you. I don't know. If you have too many questions, it's up to you.
Well, now, since we're lacking two of the candidates, we might do exactly that, and I might wing it a little bit here as well. So this question and this next question, the next two questions, will be for all of the candidates. So we're going to start with Hosanna Yamaru first, and the same question will come to you, Janie Schultz, right afterwards. So Ms. Yamaru, you and your opponents, each of you is running to replace a term-limited councilman. How would you describe Councilman Kleinman's representation of District 11's interests? What will you try to continue, and what will you do differently? And be as specific as you can.
This is a big question. So let's see it a little bit differently. So I think, for example, something that was shocking to me was, in the last budget cycle, for instance, the things that Councilman Kleinman was advocating to cut from our budget were things that I very much relied on, right? He wanted to cut funding from the Office of Community Care, wanted to cut from housing and homelessness. And I think that these are services that are very much necessary to the fabric of our city. I think that they serve working families, and they ensure that our city can have diversity and representation in a more holistic manner. So I think one of the things that's going to be different between the tenure of Councilmember Kleinman and me is that I would like to focus on working families. I would like to focus on the fact that we have a city that is 60% renters, and yet we do not have enough renters on our council. I would like to focus on the fact that we have, even in District 11, pockets of communities that have never been served in the way that other parts of our district have, because they don't vote at the same rates as other parts of our district do. But I believe really firmly that it doesn't matter whether you vote or not. What matters is that you have a council member that is going to represent you regardless of that, because that is our job. So that would be something that I would do differently than Councilmember Kleinman. I think the things that he did really well was he was always very strong on holding the line on property taxes. And I think that's really important, not only here in District 11, but across our city, as we see property tax push out being a really big problem. Especially for seniors on fixed incomes in our city. So that is something that I commend him for. I think he's always been very strong when it comes to being a somewhat good steward of taxpayer money and raising red flags when he sees them. So that's something that I commend him for, and I think that we need to be doing as a council as a whole. I feel like there was a third part of this question that I might have missed.
Bob?
You're muted, I'm sorry. Oh, you're back to muted.
Let's see, it was basically what you would try to continue, what you would do differently, and specific as possible. I think you pretty well covered that. So now let me present the same question to Janie Schultz. I'll repeat it just so that you hear the question in entirety. Each of you is running to replace a term-limited councilman. How would you describe Councilman Kleinman's representation of District 11's interests? What would you try to continue, and what would you do differently?
Thank you very much. So I'll start with the representation of interests. I believe that it's one of the most challenging parts of being a representative of 100,000 people is representing those interests. And so the key part is being able to be a good listener and creating fora for listening opportunities. So that's one of the things that I will do differently than him, which is to create many, many more opportunities to listen to the residents in District 11 all over the district. The other area of his work, though, as Hosanna mentioned, I think he did a brilliant job on the budget, and he called himself a budget hawk, was very proud about that. I won't be taking that role, and I won't be taking the role of hawk anything, but what I will be doing is very carefully looking at the budget. I think that Councilman Kleinman has built up an incredible team of professionals who have an outstanding record of constituent services. And I will definitely continue that and build on that team. The area that he's done okay with, but I really plan on spending a lot of time and effort improving, is the communication with the district. I have a lot of new ideas that I want to bring in communication. I want to work on neighborhood leadership development, which is not something that he has done. The other big difference, and the elephant in the room, is that I will have a very different relationship with our first responders. I will actually reach out to them to hear their opinions about things. I will support the budget. I will work very, very closely with them. But I will add that Councilman Kleinman, I think, is to be commended. He's given 8 years of incredible service to this district, to this city, and I hope that we can really express our gratitude to him. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This question will go to both of you as well, since it was one of the issues that was mentioned pretty much in every one of your websites. So all four folks running for this office cite homelessness as a critical issue for the city. Homelessness and panhandling, we might take the two of them together, even though they are slightly different. They are difficult topics, difficult issues to deal with. And just wondering, we'll start with Ms. Yemeroux, what is your plan to combat homelessness and panhandling in the city of Dallas?
Yes, so I think it's important to start off and say that I think that we can all agree that it's a moral failure that we have so much homelessness in the city of Dallas, that we have so much homelessness in one of the richest countries in the world in general. When I first moved here from Ethiopia, that was one of the things that really struck me, was that exists. I was quite young at the time, but still. So I think it's really important that we treat this like the public health and public safety crisis that it is in our city. And that means that we are going to approach this with a housing first outlook, because we know that the real solution to homelessness is housing. We understand that we need deeply affordable housing in all parts of our city, including here in District 11 and District 12 and District 13. We know that we need to build permanent supportive housing and transitionary housing, so folks that are homeless and chronically homeless can get the support that they need to become active members of our city. And we need to ensure that we are not further criminalizing or making it even more difficult for people that are currently homeless and experiencing homelessness can never get out of this cycle. I don't think any of us here in this room could survive without homes. I know I personally could not survive without a home. And I think that especially now in COVID, we know that our unhoused population is not only more at risk of catching COVID, but even more at risk of spreading COVID in our communities. So it is a public safety crisis, it's a public health crisis, it's a moral crisis, and it's really important that we are treating this like the priority that it is, instead of just chasing homeless communities from under one bridge into another bridge, because that does not solve. That would be my solution: permanent supportive housing, deeply affordable housing, wraparound services, mental health and addictive services, so that people can transition from being chronically homeless and into homes. And then we don't have to have the nuisance or the nuisance problem that we describe homelessness as currently.
And Bob, Candy Evans has joined us, or somebody has.
Candy Evans, I see you on my screen. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. I had a family emergency and I have to come see a 101-year-old uncle. And I'm here, but I'm a little late, but I am here, and I'll just wait patiently for when you're ready.
Okay, well, we're hoping that everything is okay on that front.
As fast as can be. Thank you.
You have an opportunity for an opening statement if you have one prepared.
Well, I'm going to take my mask off my earring. I am Candy Evans. I'm running for Dallas City Council in District 11. And I know you guys, I've talked with you before. I ran 4 years ago. You may remember me. I'm running on a platform of public safety and basics first. I'm really into the infrastructure, in improving our infrastructure, not looking at all the shiny objects that are out there, looking at what we need as citizens to make our life better. My view of city life is that the city exists to basically give us the services that we get from our tax dollars that we pay. I'm very big on housing. I want to make our housing as workforce affordable as possible. I want to see actually fewer apartments in our district. I think we have enough apartments in our district. I'd like to see more single family homes or zero lot line homes for seniors who are downsizing. And I'd love to see public safety boosted to the point where we can all just do what we want to do and not have to worry about having our cars broken into. I do want a permanent solution for the homeless. I think we really have to have a comprehensive citywide program. We don't want to put Band-Aids on this any longer. We absolutely need to have a program for the homeless that is kind to them, helps them, and helps us, because we don't really want to live this way. We want to help them, but giving them money is not helping them, it's enabling them. So we need to use all of our resources, which we have fabulous resources in Dallas, pull them together and do something about this, and have a good solid solution to it. We don't want to evolve into a San Francisco type program, I think. So I have a business background. I started a business. I'm a journalist. I also am kind of the kind of person that looks for, I look through things, and I'm not kind of your typical candidate, because I'm a little out there of, I want to know what the payoff is for this. I want to know what the whole story is. I dig. And I will take that approach to city council.
All right, thank you for the opening statement.
Thank you.
We're going to give the question
I applaud the new building in District 11 that'll be able to provide permanent supportive housing. Be able to support the organizations that support the homeless populations. And I'm working now with the Metro Dallas Homeless Alliance on actually some really innovative tech solutions that might help people avoid having to hand out money when they want to, but instead be able to text funds very quickly to homeless organizations when they feel like they want to help someone who's a panhandler. And that'll reduce the amount of cash on the streets. And that's the goal, to reduce panhandling. Thank you.
Okay, just a follow up, and you just hit on something that I've discovered in my research on this issue, which is some cities are taking exactly that approach of establishing some sort of a ability for folks to donate money rather than hand it to them individually. And it's basically a public education process of telling the public this is the wrong approach. What some cities are doing is they're accepting donations online through PayPal and things like that, which money will be distributed for very limited purposes, for purposes like affordable housing, for food, for transportation, and pretty much not for anything else. Do you support that kind of a thing?
Absolutely, because the folks that are facing home
um,
about officers, but we're not talking about the community. We're not talking about the fact that for a very long time, we've been dealing with the exact same problems when it comes to policing, especially in communities of color, especially in domestic violence and domestic abuse cases, especially when it comes to mental health cases. And year after year, we continue to overlook that. We continue to not have a community have a say in how they are policed. So I am 100% supportive of expanding these programs, making sure that we have mental health resources and ensuring that we have, just like Ms. Evans just said, right, a drug response, because we know that police cannot be the response to every societal and systemic problem that we have in our city. It is not a way to respond to crime. It is not a way to respond to violence. And at the end, it just makes our communities less safe and it makes our officers less safe. So I'm definitely supportive of that process, and think that we need to move away from just over-militarized policing into real community policing in which neighbors are looking out for neighbors, and that we're actually using experts and people who know how to handle these problems along with police.
all right, thank you. And Janie Schultz, same question regarding police dispatch to mental health calls and to domestic dispute calls. Would it damage the police department's ability to respond to calls, or would it be an effective way to de-escalate the violence that happens on these calls by sending along a mental health professional in addition to the police?
I think it makes perfect sense. And frankly, at the risk of losing a point on this question, I think Hosanna answered it brilliantly, and I agree completely.
Okay, thank you. Um,
fresh.
Carol can take a look at some of the chat questions.
Without ways to use tax
And a couple of people, my staff, we looked at that and we said, this doesn't look right. They haven't, they haven't opened this up for proposal. I mean, what is going on here? And so we looked at it and we wrote about it. And we actually had, I put together a meeting that Don Williams helped me put together with our current mayor, Mayor Johnson. He came and spoke, and we talked about this, and we sort of started writing about it and kind of getting the message out there. And I think that we were kind of, maybe the first little poke in the bubble that got people thinking. And look at it now. I mean, we've got this beautiful Fair Park that has been now purchased by a large company. We have a world-renowned architectural landscape architect who's put this together. I toured it not too long ago. It's coming along beautifully. This is like my personal beef, is that I do not like corruption in government. I would like to see a stronger ethics program. You know, we had 7 people running for mayor 2 years ago, and every single one of them, their platform was, I'm gonna, ethics, ethics, ethics. I'm gonna have the strongest ethics program. We don't have one ethics program now. So that is something that I personally would like to take on and make sure we have. Now, Visit Dallas, another one that we wrote about when I discovered that Philip Smith had 2 homes. He had one in mid-cities, and he owned a place at the, I think it was the the House by Philip Stark. And I was like, what is this? What is going on here? We started digging and digging, and then the media opened it up and looked at it, and we found out of all the corruption that was going on. Other thing that I noticed when I started looking at Visit Dallas as a journalist was how bloated it was. I was rolling through the screen, trying to find different people that I might know on there. And it was like my computer was just never ending. There were so many people employed. So I think that we absolutely have to trim things down. We have to make sure that taxpayers' money is not wasted. And when we do that, then we have more money to go to the people who really need it. And we have the services that need it, the homeless. I mean, there's plenty of money out there. Let's find the money that's going where it shouldn't be going, to the consultants and to the fluff. And Visit Dallas is a tremendous example of that. Now, I am going to meet with the new CEO and talk to them, and I'll be very direct with them about what I think they ought to do going forward. And I think they have to be careful. They have to probably slim things down, lean it up. As far as the Omni Hotel, now I am in the hotel business. I'm on the board of directors of Braemar Hotels and Resorts, and the hotel business has been hurt terribly by the pandemic. We think we're going to come out of it. We think that travel is going to start again. We think conventions might not get going for another 2 years, which is going to be really rough on the Omni. I'm not sure that was a good business for the city to go in, but we're in it, so we have to make the best of it. But that's how, I would look at every opportunity that we have to go into business very carefully about, look at it from what it is when the economy's good, when the economy's bad, what's the risk? How much liability will we have? I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I want to give Janie Schultz her opportunity.
Yes.
And then we're gonna, Carol, are you gonna ask some of the questions on the chat to finish?
Yeah, do we have any more candidates up after this?
Bernie Warnick is the only one that seems to be missing.
Okay, I have a few questions. So
okay, well, let's let Janie answer the question about accountability and possible corporate welfare flowing to the State Fair of Texas and the Visit Dallas Tourism Bureau.
Sure. So first of all, I think it's essential that for every department of the city and for every contract that the city has, that we have agreed upon metrics. And so then we have measures of whether or not our investment in either that department or in that program or in that partnership are meeting our expectations, and they're mutually agreed upon expectations that we set in advance before the budget is set for the city, before contracts are signed with outside vendors. And then we can know. And I think that's part of the challenge that we faced with Visit Dallas and where we're seeing now. So I'll just take each one. Visit Dallas is in a completely different place than they ever were. With our new CEO, their workforce is 50% what it was. They are lean and mean and retooling, and I'm very, very excited and optimistic about the accountability, how transparent they are, and the work that they're going to be doing in Dallas. I'm very, very excited about that. The State Fair, it's very important that we also separate the State Fair of Texas from Fair Park First in the agreement on the park management, which we have with the city. Fair Park First just announced their initiative with the neighborhood. They've been working tirelessly with the neighborhoods around there to green up the park, to raise the $85 million that they're going to need for their new park. The State Fair of Texas is a tremendous tourism generator for our city, and we need to support them and we need to work with them. In addition, they also They also provide hundreds of thousands of dollars in scholarships, in jobs, and in other things. So we have to make sure that the State Fair of Texas, as far as I'm concerned, still feels as good about Dallas as we feel about the State Fair. And then finally, the Omni. The Omni was a business decision that the city made, and what we have to make sure is that we get our money back for the city. You know, people have criticized, for example, on a much smaller scale, the Costco that came to our district. That Costco, the city gave $3 million. They've already gotten $6 million in return. So we know that was a good investment. And so the question with the Omni is, are we going to be getting our city, our money back? What's our metric? Just like any financial decision and investment that we would make in real estate for this city. And that would go with any partnership that we have. I am not at all opposed to public-private partnerships. In fact, I think that that's a tremendous way for the city to leverage our tax dollars on behalf of the citizens, as long as they're treated as the business deals that in fact they are. Thank you.
Okay, I want to thank all the candidates, and now let's go to Carol with whatever questions she's got.
So after Lena's first two introductions, the big question was, who was the candidate who did not respond? And it was Adam Magoo, right? M-C-G-O-U-G-H, right?
Correct.
So people wanted to know who it was that didn't respond.
He didn't respond to our request to join. He didn't respond to our request to submit questions. We contacted him through his office, his city hall office, through Facebook, and through his campaign.
So people were very interested in that, and I think that has been answered. So another question. What is your position on removing I-345, and why is that your position? I presume it's the highway. Dallas has a history of racial divides. What is the best way to answer those issues?
Okay, any of the candidates want to take that one up?
I will, I'll start that one. So our highways did more to decimate communities of color than any other thing that we've done in the city besides redlining. And so that must be acknowledged to begin with. Taking I-345, I do not believe will bridge a racial divide. That being said, what we need to do is continue to look and make sure that the decision to take it down, which I am not opposed to taking it down, what the real factors that we have to deal with on that, because it is the amount, they say it's about $1 billion in real estate that will be unlocked if in fact it does come down. So we have to make sure that that opportunity is fairly distributed. That's really, really huge. So it doesn't just go to a few large developers. Number two, we have to make sure that the folks that are driving in from South Dallas and East Dallas to use I-345 getting north, that there's actually proper traffic dispersal to make sure that they can still get to work. So as long as we can manage those issues and we can look at those, then I think that there is the potential for it coming down. But I don't think we automatically just, should just do it.
Okay, I guess we'll go to Candy, but let me just give this a little bit of background. We're talking about a section of highway that's no more than 2 miles long, I think, in the south part of Dallas. It's towards the very end of the 35 near downtown. And it's more of a transition road, I think, but I've only been on it a couple of times. So if our candidates have some insight into that, but I'm pretty sure it's just no more than 2 miles. But it does cut right through the center of that section of town and does kind of segregate one part of the city. So Candy, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm ready. I just moved to get to hopefully a quieter spot. I actually am supportive with hesitation of this removal. And I kind of agree with what Janie said on this. I think we need to look at it very carefully. We could be opening up a lot of potential real estate investment, which would be great. We have to make sure that the the need is there, you know, that the buyers are going to be there. We have to be very careful of how we reroute traffic. I am concerned with people who need that, you know, that little 2 mile or whatever it is that they use it. There's a lot of congestion down there, as you probably well know, and they need that to move. And I'm also I don't want to put a lot of trucks on our city streets. I am one of these people that tells everyone to slow down, and I don't like the way people drive too fast through Dallas, and I think that we don't want to get trucks zooming by. We're going to open it up to more accidents. So I think we have to really engineer this. We have to talk to some good traffic experts, and probably, you know, with these people you can kind of get a study that supports everything. But I think we have to look at it very critically. I'm super open to it. I'm very familiar with the Coalition for New Dallas, because I used to work at D Magazine, so I'm very close to them. And I think it's a great idea, and I think we do need to take down these barriers. It's so sad. You know, I was born in Chicago, and coming down here, seeing how it is in the South, the North and the South, and the dividing of highways and whatever railroad tracks we do. I mean, tear those down and let's get people moving across those lines and living together, because that's what we need to do to you know, make the communities more comfortable with each other. I love the fact that we're thinking about doing this, and as I said, we just need to do it so we're not too disruptive about it. That's my main concern.
Okay, and who's
Hey,
Hosanna?
Bob, wait. I've had a request that Elva be included in answering these questions too. So can you include her also? And
Okay, Hosanna, if you can answer that. And is Elva still with us? Elva, are you there?
she may.
I think she might have just logged off.
All right, if anybody finds her, if she comes back on, we'll go to her with that. Meantime, Hosanna, and then what have we got time for? Just like 1 or 2 more questions, or?
There's really just one more that I have.
Okay, so Hosanna, if you want to interject on the issue of Highway 345, I know it's really out of our district, but you know, South Dallas is a continuing problem for the city council as far as development. So even though it's far distant from our districts, it is important to the city. So you know, we need to address that. So what is your opinion?
Yeah, so I think the question was 2-part. What was 345, and was how we address just racial inequality in our city as well. And I think those 2 things are very much intertwined, because there's a couple of things that need to happen concurrently. And I am supportive of tearing down I-345. And I think that it's really important that as we do that, we are building public transportation options so that we can redirect traffic. I think it's really important that we are considering the fact that we have one of the most economically and racially segregated cities in the country, and building that housing in the northern part of the city as much as we can, affordable housing in the northern part of the city as much as we can, and building bringing economic development to South Dallas and West Dallas in a way that prevents displacement of the people that already live there. It's really important that in our housing plan, our economic development plan, that we are including the fact that Dallas needs to be a place for Dallasites, not just for transplants. And I think that as you tear down I-345, the things that we need to consider is comprehensive housing, it's transportation, it's bringing jobs to Southern Dallas and Western Dallas, and making sure that the communities that live in that area have an active say in how their neighborhoods are being built. I think this has been a major problem in how we have developed Dallas overall, and that is because we do not have people on council. I mean, we do have people on council that do this, but we don't have enough people on council who are working Dallasites, who understand what it feels like to be pushed out of their neighborhoods. So I think it's really important, like I said, to take an intersectional look at this. It's not just about tearing down the highway, it's about ensuring that communities that live in Southern Dallas and West Dallas and Old East Dallas have an active say in how their neighborhoods are being built, that we're bringing jobs into those areas, that we're building anti-gentrification measures and anti-displacement measures, and that we're expanding. I know there was a question in the chat, I'm sure we'll get to it, but building buses. Buses, I think, are really important that to connect us into making sure that folks have the the ability to live and work and play and raise their families in one area without having to travel across the city to do so. Yeah, so I think that that's really important.
All right, thank you. And Carol, you.
One more question, and Hosanna touched on this. And this is a question from a good friend of both of our clubs. If there's not enough money for the city to expand both light rail and bus service, which would you vote for?
I can.
Yeah, let's let Janie go first. She always seems to be last, so we'll let you go first, and then we'll go to Candy, and then Ms. Yamaru.
So if I have to choose between light rail and bus, is that the bottom line of that
That's
question?
the bottom line. I don't know if it's realistic, but it is the bottom line.
I'm going for bus all the way
And why?
because it can serve a lot more people. It can it can provide access to many, many more people. And then I know that DART, Patrick Kennedy, Rodney Schlosser, some of the other folks on the DART board are working actively to try to rethink the entire routing system. And I think that that's also another opportunity for neighborhood engagement to find out where they want routes to be. And let's do that way rather than going just, if I have to choose, then that's the way I'm going to go.
Well, that's how I posed it. You had to choose.
Okay, and
Yeah.
Candy?
Yes, I agree. I would go bus. You know, I'm really looking at this D2 subway. It's expensive. Light rail is, well, the subway is really expensive. Light rail is expensive. And, you know, DART is not exactly a moneymaker now. Buses are reliable, more reliable possibly than light rail sometimes, especially when it's 0 degrees out. They're friendlier, they're easier to get on. As we get older, they're easier to manage and navigate, and we're all getting older. I would definitely go with buses first. And I think that light rail is sexy and it's shiny and it's beautiful, but we got to watch the bottom line, and we got to serve as many people as possible. I think we totally need more bus lines in South Dallas, totally.
Okay, and Hosanna?
I would also go with buses. I think that we need to ensure that our buses are serving our urban core, that they're not, you know, just going out into urban sprawl. I think that's really important. I think we need to make the fares more accessible. And I think on top of that, buses give us a really great opportunity to even invest into traffic calming measures as we build bus lanes, as we build bus islands. And this is something that we could be doing not only for environmental design and to ensure that we are making climate change policy, but also towards street racing, towards public safety. It really solves a lot of problems all at once. So buses all the way.
Can
The
I?
last comment I'm going to say is from one of our participants who said, "Great answers, candidates. Thank you for your vision, your engagement, and coming tonight. Good luck." And I have to second that. I mean, new blood, new answers, new everything is what keeps us going. And so I really appreciate hearing from all of you, and I'm sure everybody else on here does. I mean, you can put a little clap thing or something up, or thumbs up, but thank you so much, candidates.
Okay, and now to Lena.
Okay, well, we've come to the end of our time. We actually wound up right on our time that we had allotted for this. One thing I want to let everyone know that next week at this exact same time, we have another candidate forum. This one will cover the Richardson City Council, the places that are open. And we have one incumbent who said he will submit questions. We'll see how that goes. And then we have the RISD board seats. So you might want to think about that if any of you are in the Richardson School District. That will be important to you. I also would like to invite you to go to our website for Far North Dallas and for NDTDW. Let's see if I can find, there's also, I have a, where'd it go? I have I think this is it. There we go. These are the contact information for all of the candidates. I have posted on our NDTDW Facebook page a request for people to make comments about tonight's uh, forum and any questions that you or comments you want to post. We really invite you and suggest to you, to those people that did not show up, that you might want to contact their offices and let them know how you feel about that. And then to the rest of them that were here and donated their time and made the effort to show up with us, please do let them know that you appreciate it. And we certainly appreciate it with all of you. So I'm going to leave that up for a few more minutes in case anybody needs to get it. We have recorded this event. It will be posted to our Facebook page, which is actually my Facebook page, but it's what NDTDW uses to post our meetings. And I will be sending out a link to that YouTube site tomorrow. So you might want to make sure that you're on the NDTDW mailing list. You can do that by going to our website, www.ndtdw.com, and just sign up. There's a little form at the bottom, and we send out messages about our meetings and anything that's coming up and other interesting topics. So we certainly hope that you will join us, and look forward to having you join us next month. We also may have another program that is coming up. We haven't gotten it finalized yet. Carol, can you tell us about what that is? It's not going to be a regular date, but it's...
It's going to be earlier because we're trying to coordinate with Ana Maria Ramos's office to put together a informative presentation on lobbying, and particularly in the pandemic, lobbying, and then an opportunity to hear about bills and, you know, where they need to be lobbied. Are they here? Are they at the calendars? Are they at the full Senate? And give you information in terms of contacting people in the legislature. And one of the interesting things both Sharon Hirsch and I heard was that, you know, you think like, you know, Ana Maria Ramos is a Democrat and you presume she has certain ideas, but it's helpful to her in terms of supporting certain bills if she gets like a certain amount of emails or telephone calls supporting a bill, because if she gets 3,000 against and only 100 for, just because everybody, I mean, it makes her look at things. On the opposite side, I know there have been some people against bills who have gotten a lot of lobbying for bills who have changed their minds. And so anyway, we had people very interested in, you know, doing postcards and things, and you can just write emails. You don't have to call. You can just write letters. You don't have to call. You don't have to talk to anybody if you don't want to, but making your voice heard is very important. And if you have a personal story, if you might be willing to testify, that is really, really important. So we're going to be trying to roll this out shortly to help people be more proactive in this legislative session, which I know looks horrible, but we can make it better. Anyway, thank you so much tonight.
Okay, and to all of you, we will be sending out that information as soon as the program is finalized. So be sure to sign up on our ndtdw.com website to get our emails. And we are going to sign off for tonight. And we want to thank all of you for being here and all the candidates for being so good and at giving us your information. So night night, everybody.
Thank you so much for letting me pop in late. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.